what the city is talking about.
The news that impacts you.
Welcome to the Montreal Now podcast
With Aaron Rand and Natasha Hall.
Welcome to another edition of The Week That Was here on the iHeartRadio Network. I'm Aaron Rand along with Natasha Hall, and this week we'll take a look at these stories. As someone who has mastered the art of napping, I took great interest in reading a New York Times story about how science is now weighing in on napping. With tips on how and when the best methods are, well, we'll find out more when we talk to Alice Callahan, the health reporter with the New York Times.
988 is a new suicide crisis helpline that went into effect across Canada this week. It's a very important initiative with the goal of prevention and providing crucial support. How does it work and why is it so needed? The chief medical officer of 988 walked us through it.
If you've ever dealt with a scammer, well, of course, you realize you're not alone. Turns out 42% of us say they have had the same experience. And a recent phenomenon in these scams involves people pretending to be representatives of official government institutions, no less. You'll hear from the director of cyber market intelligence at Interac about what to look for and what to do.
But we begin with this. So this week we spoke to a chief futurist. Yes, that is her actual title. She works for Ford, and for 12 years they've been tracking trends, mainly having to do with our behavior and our feelings about things. And what do you know? It seems most of us would take a pay cut if we could have a better quality of life. Our priorities are shifting. She had lots to say about that.
Look, I came across this story, and the part of this that kind of really stuck out to me are some of the numbers in here. So every year, Ford Motor does what's called a trend report, right? How people are thinking, and they do this globally, by the way, right? It's not just here in the U.S. It's they sample people everywhere. And the one thing, and I wanted to use this as a question because one of the sort of figures that came up, 52%, so over half, 52% of employed people globally would be willing to take a 20% pay cut to achieve a lifestyle that prioritizes quality of life.
That's very telling.
52%.
That's very telling. So it's not about money as much as it is about quality.
Or is that something people say, but then actually really wouldn't do? I wonder. We wanted to find out more. Jennifer Brace is Chief Futurist. What a great job title that is. At the Ford Motor Company, she's on the line. Jennifer, thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I would ask you just off the top, that to me seems like a rather glaring figure. That's a lot of people saying that. That's not the kind of thing we might have expected sort of 5 years ago even. Maybe that's pandemic related. I don't know. Year to year, 2023, 2024, did you see a big change as far as trends go?
Yeah, there's a lot of trends that we track that we continue that evolve over the years. This year, the big thing that we saw was people are really looking to prioritize themselves, which connects back to the stat that you just called out, right? 52% saying they would give up 20% of their pay in order to have a better quality of life. And what we really noticed this year is that people continue to kind of call out the fact that the world feels unstable. This is something that we saw throughout COVID especially. And the big change we saw this year was that they're really shifting their priority on themselves, looking to, take better care of themselves, saying that they are willing to forego advancements at work if it means that they can have less stress or have a better quality of life, and really focusing in on what's going to make them feel better or more complete. So that would be, I would say, the biggest shift. So this year we called it kind of charting my path as our theme for the year.
There also seemed to be, like you touched on it right there, stress and anxiety. Did you get a sense with this study, with this questionnaire of what people are stressed about, what's causing them to be anxious?
We didn't dive in nearly as much this year as we have in prior years in terms of what's causing those stresses. I can tell you that last year, a lot of that stress, it was global instability, it was national instability, it was personal finances. So it was really hitting people on all facets, right, of their life. And so because we saw such strong signals last year, we didn't ask as many questions about it this year. We still see some. One of the things that stands out is people reporting that they are anxious at least once a week. And we saw that one was pretty high, particularly with our youngest generation. So our Gen Z reporting 61% of them saying that they feel anxious on a regular basis, whereas our baby boomers or our older generation was only at 40%. So we do continue to see these kind of this feeling of anxiety, of stress, of overwhelm, which we've seen for years. It is continuing.
Yeah, I would point out the one other thing that's so very 2023 here, if you will, or 2024. 68% of people believe AI will lead to massive job loss for others, but only 39% actually thought it would lead to job loss for themselves. So clearly AI is on everyone's mind. Most people are afraid of it, but not for themselves.
Yeah, I know. I love it when we get some data that feels like there's some do as I say, not as I do, or some contradiction in it. And this is one of those cases, right, where people think it's going to happen to other people, but not to them. That's always a cautionary tale. But what I really think that it speaks to is AI is something that people are concerned about. They kind of recognize that they see it as being part of their daily lives, especially in the future. But half of people said that they don't understand it, or they might even be afraid of it. So there's this idea that they know that it's coming. They recognize that it could have some potential impacts. But yeah, they definitely think it's going to happen to more people than it is to themselves.
Very interesting.
I don't know.
Stuff
It's
in
just,
here.
there's a lot in here to be sort of looked at, dissected. And when I asked you off the top, Jennifer, the idea of doing this year to year, how far back do you go with these?
So this is our 12th year of doing this survey. So we have got many years, and actually if you go to the site, FordTrends.com, you can see the prior years when we've done the survey as well. So
Anything that's an
definitely
eye-opener when you look back, I mean, from 2012 to now, that really kind of stands out?
The biggest thing that we see, a lot of the things that we think are new really aren't that new. It's not uncommon that we go back and we go, oh, wow, we talked about this, 5 years ago. Wow. So there are times, honestly, that we're almost surprised at the fact that they haven't changed a ton. One of the big ones that you can see on our site this year that we've had in prior years is something that we call the green paradox. It's this idea that, over 70% of people are saying that they are actively fighting climate change or making changes in their life to fight climate change. But when you dig just a little bit deeper, you find that 2/3 of people are saying, well, I'm really only going to make a change if the inconvenience to me is small or non-existent.
Ah, yes.
Very telling.
Okay, we will leave it
meaning,
there.
oh, no, I want to do things, but make it easy.
Yeah.
Make it easy.
Exactly.
Don't ask for too much.
Well, you definitely have the coolest job title ever.
Jennifer
I couldn't agree
Brace.
more. Thank you.
Yeah, Chief Futurist at Ford Motor Company. Jennifer, thanks so much for your time today.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Informative,
Interactive.
and always interesting.
This is Montreal Now with Aaron Rand and Natasha Hall.
As someone who has mastered the art of napping, I took great interest in reading a New York Times story about how science is now weighing in on napping. With tips on how and when the best methods are, well, we'll find out more when we talk to Alice Callahan, the health reporter with the New York Times. So napping is a subject near and dear to my heart and has been for many, many years. I like to think I'm pretty good at it, but I'm always surprised. You talk to people and you say, hey, do you nap as well? And they're, yeah, I do. For about 45 minutes. I'm like, no, that's not a nap. Then you're entering like a deep sleep cycle. So I used to think, and I think I thought this because I'd read stuff on this in the past, suggesting that 15 to 20 minutes, that's what a nap is, and that allows you to wake up fairly refreshed and carry on with your day. Then I'm reading this article, and our guest is going to speak on this in a sec, in the New York Times, suggesting there is much more research on this now, and in fact, you can actually get some pretty good tips in here, including the idea that 20 minutes is the ideal nap time. Alice Callahan is on the line. This is her story. She's a health reporter at the New York Times. Alice, thanks so much for being here.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
So let me get going here with what I'm talking about. We're reading in this article, and you're discussing this with someone who studies this, suggesting that, yes, 20 minutes is the ideal nap time?
Yeah, I mean, I think it kind of depends on what you're looking for, but a 20-minute nap is a really beautiful way to take a little bit of a pause during your day. You can kind of capture those first couple stages of a sleep cycle, which are pretty light sleep. It can still feel restorative, but you can wake up much more easily from that kind of sleep than the deeper sleep that you get into later into the sleep cycle. And with 20 minutes, it's much less likely to interfere with your ability to go to sleep at night, which I think is also really important. So yeah, a 20-minute nap can be really effective.
So it's interesting because we were talking about how much science is now playing a bigger and bigger part of this and telling us what we know. And I love this phrase from your story, which is, a nap is like a performance-enhancing drug without the drug part, which I think is amazing when you consider the science behind it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah, that came from a sleep expert that I spoke to for the story. And yeah, I have to say I went into this, into researching this story as a bit of a nap skeptic. I've always felt like I didn't really have time for a nap, or I felt guilty about, losing productivity in the middle of the day. And I also worried that if I laid down for a nap, I wouldn't actually fall asleep. I'd be wasting my time, or I'd wake up feeling groggy and with less energy, right? But yeah, it turns out there's a ton of research that shows that naps can be really good for you, especially, these short naps can have a lot of benefits. They can help you think more clearly, improve your mood. You'll feel less sleepy, obviously, later in the day. And, maybe be able to return to sort of the tasks of your day with more focus and energy. So the experts that I spoke to for this story really challenged me to give it a try.
Alice, I have nap envy. With my guy can just like fall asleep anywhere, anytime, and even if it's just like 5 minutes in a parking lot, like while he's waiting for me to grab a quart of milk or whatever, like no problem, anytime, anyhow. I am not like that. My mind, I'm someone whose mind races, and I'm not a good sleeper at the best of times. Does it matter if you actually sleep when you're napping, or can you just kind of try to calm yourself? Does that have a good effect as well?
Yeah, so that's one of the things that the experts I spoke to for this story really emphasized to me, that we shouldn't worry about whether or not we fall asleep. If you're going to give yourself 15 to 20 minutes to rest, get comfortable, set an alarm so that you'll wake up when you need to, and just let yourself relax. You may not feel like you go to sleep, but you may actually be just in those light stages of sleep where you're sort of semi-conscious, and the alarm will go off and you'll be like, I don't know if I really fell asleep. But the research shows that even that super light sleep can be really restorative. So sort of set aside whatever expectations you may have going into the nap and just let yourself rest and see what happens. That was the advice that the researchers offered.
I think the other tip in here, especially for novice nappers, set an alarm, because if you're trusting yourself to wake up, I think that probably keeps you anxious enough that you think you'll miss that 20 minutes.
True.
So set an alarm, number one. And number two, you mentioned, according to the doctor you spoke to for the piece, that there is in fact what they call a natural circadian dip. Everyone goes through this, right? Regardless of whether you nap or not.
Right. Yeah. Early afternoon. I think we all know that feeling where you're sort of like nodding off in a meeting or zoning out in front of your computer. That's your body. That's sort of, it's your usual energy levels that sort of keep you alert during the day. They kind of slow down at that point in the day. And, there's a reason why in many cultures that's a natural time for people to take a little break. So it may be worth trying to think about giving yourself a really intentional break during that time, so that you can come back with more energy for the rest of the day. Yeah.
I also found it pretty interesting that there's like a right way and a wrong way to wake up. So the alarm thing for me is definitely crucial because my mind can relax a little bit if I've got that to rely upon. But then what's the right and wrong way to wake up from a nap?
Yeah, I mean, I think, especially if you worry about feeling groggy when you wake up, just giving yourself a few minutes. The researchers I spoke with just said, give yourself a little grace. It does take a couple minutes to shift gears and go back to a wakeful state. Trying to get some bright light in your eyes right away, just like going by a bright window, or if you can step outside for a few minutes, can really help kind of signal to your brain, like it's time to be alert again. Another recommendation is just like splashing some cold water on your face and your neck, doing a couple jumping jacks, something to get your body moving. And then hopefully you can be ready to go again. And I should add too that, there is some research on, sort of differences. There are some people that just find that napping is difficult for them or doesn't seem helpful for them. And one of the reasons may be that you just always feel like you wake up groggy and it's hard to get going again. So there seems to be a genetic component to that. So if that's you, don't feel like you're a failure at napping. That may just be that you need to find another way
thank you.
to take a break
I need
during the day.
Don't feel like a failure, Natasha. It's not you, it's the nap.
Yeah.
Alice, thank you so much. We really appreciate talking to you today. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This was fun.
You bet. Alice Callahan. So it's in the New York Times if you want to read the whole thing, including how coffee is not the answer to this, by the way, if you need that
I'm
mid-afternoon
not
pick-me-up.
listening to that part. I'm not.
Well, you have just your one.
Informative,
Interactive,
and always interesting.
This is Montreal Now with Aaron Rand and Natasha Hall.
988 is a new suicide crisis helpline that went into effect across Canada this week. It's a very important initiative with the goal of prevention and providing crucial support. How does it work and why is it so needed? The Chief Medical Officer of 988 walked us through it.
A big step the government took, federal government, to prioritize mental health and well-being here in Canada, officially launching a nationwide 3-digit suicide crisis helpline. It is 988. That's all you have to do. Just those 3 numbers when in crisis, and apparently you'll get someone to come on, a trained person to come on and be able to direct you where you need to go and deal with the situation you're in. Dr. Allison Crawford is Chief Medical Officer at the 988 Suicide Crisis Helpline. She's on the line.
Thank you so much for your time today, Dr. Crawford.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So congratulations on this happening. I know it's as of this morning that this has gone into effect, and I also know that it has been years in the works, and I remember talking to several different people about the frustration in actually getting it done. Can I ask out of the gate, I mean, again, congratulations, but I imagine it has been a frustrating process. Why has it taken so long?
Well, actually, my perspective is it's been a wonderful process. So 988, which, as you say, is available as of today across the country for anyone living in Canada. It has been a real work of collaboration across every province and territory and with existing crisis line providers. So we also had a service that launched 2 years ago, Talk Suicide Canada. And in Quebec, you have suicide.ca and the Appel service. And that service, the Talk Suicide service, has been operational for 2 years. And this work really built on the Talk Suicide service and just expanded that to more partners from across the country. I could say more, but
please do. My understanding was that it was kind of a bit of a complicated process to get the actual 988 number, and so I know that the will was there, and I know it was a great collaborative effort. It's got to feel so great to actually have it launched and know that it's going to be in place to help people.
Well, absolutely. I think everybody just sees the need and is really so hopeful about having it launched. We did find from the CRTC, the Canadian Radio, Television and Telecommunications Commission, that's the official body, they were able to make the number available about a year ago. So it's been in the U.S. to get this service going took 4 years, and we really got the service up and running within a year. So again, many people moving things to get that to happen.
You mentioned the various organizations that came together. I think the number I saw in the story said 39 different organizations. So let's assume you're here. We're in Montreal, and you want to call this 988 number because there's a crisis and you need to have it dealt with. How would it then work? I mean, who are you talking to, and what happens next?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, 39 partners. So we have partners from every province and territory. We have local providers, national providers. Because it's a network, when you call or text, you're routed to the service closest to home. And it does operate somewhat differently in different provinces. In Quebec, so 988 is available from anywhere in Canada. In Quebec, if you call or text 988, you will be routed to the existing Quebec service, which is suicide.ca and the Appel service. So, people in Quebec can continue to reach that service at 1-866-APPEL, or if they call 988, they'll be routed back into the existing service.
That leads me to a language question, because I imagine that would have been part of the concern with Quebec, is that you want to make sure there's access to service in French. Will there be access to English or other languages should people need it?
So the service is available in English and French everywhere in Canada.
Great.
Yes.
Look, I mean, regardless of how long it's taken to get, or just the fact that, and I imagine, as you said, when there's so many organizations involved, these things take time. I'm actually impressed by the fact that you said it took the U.S. so long to get it together there. We've managed to do it in a whole lot less time here, so I guess kudos for that anyway.
Thank you. We also, the U.S. has been very generous in sharing their experience, and we were able to learn a lot from them.
When we're talking about suicide prevention, which I understand is the core, goal of this line, people are in a very vulnerable situation when they call this kind of number 988. As Aaron asked, what happens then? Like, how do you prevent or help to prevent suicide?
Well, the most important thing is that people know about the service and that there's an ease of access and ease of reaching out if they do need that support. And that's where the 3 digits definitely comes in. And then calls are answered by trained responders. And those responders are, members of communities across the country. And they also have training in suicide prevention. Their initial and number one goal is to connect with that person. Every person's story or situation is different, so they will try to establish that connection and understand that person's distress, and then what that person needs. They also have training to assess for risks of suicide and strengths that person may have, ways of coping, and to help that person, to collaborate with them and help that person plan for their own safety.
Well, 988 is the number. It is a very important initiative, all about helping prevent suicide and prioritizing mental health, and just so that Canadians have a place to turn to. We very much appreciate your time today, Dr. Crawford.
Oh, thank you for connecting.
Informative.
Interactive.
And always interesting.
This is Montreal Now with Aaron Rand and Natasha Hall.
If you've ever dealt with a scammer, well, of course, you realize you're not alone. Turns out 42% of us say they have had the same experience. And a recent phenomenon in these scams involves people pretending to be representatives of official government institutions, no less. You'll hear from the Director of Cyber Market Intelligence at Interac about what to look for and what to do. We came across this article and I thought, you know what, it's time of the year. We always warn you about this kind of stuff. It still continues to happen. There are lots of scammers out there. And obviously, if you've ever dealt with one, you're not alone. This happens to people. Not everyone admits it, but it happens to a lot of people. Rachel Jolicoeur is Director of Cyber Marketing, Intelligence, and Financial Crimes at Interac Corp. She is on the line right now. Thank you for being here. I know the numbers, they're pretty crazy in a bad way, and they're only getting worse. So you say about 42% of people say they've dealt with a scammer pretending to be a representative, an official government of an official government institution. I know we're running commercials now on the air, alerting to people to this. So what's the best approach here? What should raise your sort of eyebrows to think that you're maybe not talking to someone who says who they are?
Anything that calls for urgency, just something that makes you want to act right away. So this is how criminals operate. They create that sense that you just can't just stop and take a moment, right? You have to send the money, respond to them, click on a link. This is how they operate, and that's how they make you fall victim for their scam.
I was thinking about the ads specifically that we're running here say, I got a text message from the government and they say, can I pay back the money I owe in gift cards? So there's things like that
There's a red flag, right?
We can be looking for too. What are some of those red flags?
So if the government, there's actually a few scams that's coming that's surfacing based on the survey. So you have the government officials, you got phishing, and you get like the fake banking, credit card, and online account scams. All of them it will be a little bit out of context. So you mentioned, paying with gift cards. You'll also hear about paying with cryptocurrency. So those should all be red flags. Anything that's asking you to provide personal information, clicking on links. What I would say is any time that you receive one of those texts or emails, go back to the original source, right? So don't click on the link that they give you. Go back and maybe go to the actual government website and log in through that and then look at the emails or the message to ensure that it is coming from a true source.
Okay, some people may say, well, I'm not sure I know how to do that. If you're even suspicious that it's a scam, is the idea to call police immediately, or what should you do?
No one does that, though. You just delete it, you hang up, you try to pretend it never happened almost.
That's exactly it. So you delete it and you block them. You don't want to hear from them. And if you really aren't certain if it was a scam or it could be legitimate, then I would say if it's, for instance, because it's your bank, either walk into your bank or call your bank using the phone number at the bank, at the back of your bank card. Always go back to that source because you can't trust who's sending you the information.
So don't bother with a 1-800 number. Call your bank directly at a local bank where you are.
Or the number, I would say, actually, the number at the back of your bank card.
Okay. And Rachel, what about the role that AI plays in all of this? Because it's getting much more sophisticated, and those scammers are just, they're even better at fooling everyone.
Absolutely. They are able to pretend that they are different organization. It's getting more and more difficult. And unfortunately, I used to say this is, being aware of fraud shouldn't be a full-time job, but it has become a full-time job. And that's why it's always good anytime that there's a sense of urgency or you get something that you're not expecting, just take a moment, really scrutinize before you click on anything. And if you do, for any reason, fall victim to the scam, do speak up, report it to law enforcement, and make sure that you share that experience with friends and family so they don't fall victim.
See, and that's something important. I think we've often said that people sometimes, once this has happened to you, you're embarrassed.
Yeah,
you don't want anyone to find out. If you've been the target of a scam, right, you find out you've had money taken, stolen, whatever else, what's the next thing you should do?
If it's money that's been stolen, then I would say contact your bank immediately. And then report it to the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre. And they will give you guidance on what to do next.
Okay.
And change your passwords.
Oh, there you go.
Go on your online banking, again, through the real secure channels that your bank provides, and change your password immediately.
I almost forgot that part. Yeah. Once it's compromised, it's compromised. They can get to a lot of other things on your page, I guess, or on your profile that way as well.
Yeah. Good advice.
Rachel, thank you so much. We appreciate the time.
My pleasure.
Thank you. All right. So, by the way, Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre, it's a good thing she pointed that out. My first inclination would have been to say call the police. Call the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre.
And they tell you that. I feel like we kind of feel like we're a nuisance or somehow, but they're like, no, report everything. Yeah. They need to know what's going on. They need to know the latest scams.
Don't be embarrassed. It happens to everybody. That wraps up another edition of The Week That Was here on the iHeartRadio Network. I'm Aaron Rand along with Natasha Hall, and we will see you next week.
Have a wonderful week.
This has been the Montreal Now podcast with Aaron Rand and Natasha Hall.
Listen live on your radio weekday afternoons from 2 to 6
on CJAD 800
or through the iHeartRadio app.